You weren't absent. You were running empty. Let me tell you about the moment you became invisible. Not dramatic invisible. Nobody packed bags or slammed doors. Just invisible. One day you're her partner, her equal, her person. The next day you're the guy who lives there, the one who handles logistics, the human ATM who occasionally makes breakfast. And everyone acts like this transformation is your fault, like you chose to become emotionally unavailable, like you decided one morning, you know what, I'm going to stop feeling things and see how that goes. But here's what actually happened. You didn't disappear. You collapsed. And nobody noticed because you kept showing up anyway. Something happens to men after they become fathers that we don't have language for. Society calls it stepping up. Your partner might call it finally helping out. You call it Tuesday. But what it actually is, it's a complete rewiring of your entire existence while everyone expects you to function like nothing changed. Before kids, you had a self. Hobbies, interests, energy for conversations that went deeper than, did you pay the electric bill? You'd stay up late, talking about nothing and everything. You'd surprise each other. You'd laugh at inside jokes. Now, you're a logistics coordinator trapped in a human body. Your brain used to process thoughts like, what do I want to do this weekend? Now it processes thoughts like, the baby needs new diapers, the car needs an oil change, we're out of milk, the mortgage is due, did I respond to? That work email, why is the toddler so quiet? That's never good. Remember that script about dads and the invisible inventory? That mental database you started building the second your kid was born? Plot twist, it never stops growing. It's like a computer program that keeps adding processes until the whole system runs at 2% capacity. You're tracking everything. When the kids last ate, whether they've had enough water, because apparently you're responsible for their hydration now. What activities are happening this week? Which permission slips need signing? Who needs new shoes? When the next dentist appointment is? Whether your partner seems stressed, and if so, what you should do about it. How to keep everyone happy. How to keep everyone safe. How to keep everyone alive. And simultaneously, you're supposed to excel at your job because someone has to pay for all this. Be emotionally present for your partner. Play with the kids, quality time. Do household tasks without being asked. Mental load. Stay physically fit. Don't let yourself go. Maintain friendships. Social support is important. Have hobbies. Self-care, bro. Still be attractive and interesting to your wife. Not complain about any of this. You know what that is? That's not a to-do list. That's a recipe for complete psychological shutdown. Here's where it gets really twisted. When women experience burnout, society has language for it. Mom burnout, maternal exhaustion, the mental load. There are think pieces, support groups, and Instagram accounts dedicated to validating how hard it is. When men experience burnout, it's called being emotionally unavailable. You're not burned out. You're checked out. You're not overwhelmed. You're distant. You're not running on empty. You're just not trying hard enough. A client told me something that perfectly captures this. He said, I feel like I'm drowning, but everyone's mad I'm not swimming faster. Think about that. The man is drowning, actively going under, and the feedback he gets is, why aren't you more fun to be around? Let me explain what's actually happening in your brain, because understanding this might save your sanity. When you're chronically overwhelmed, like genuinely operating beyond your capacity for months or years, your nervous system doesn't throw a party. It doesn't send you a notification that says, hey man, you need a break. Instead, it does something much quieter and more insidious. It starts turning things off. Not all at once, not obviously, just gradually, like a phone going into power-saving mode. First, it shuts down non-essential functions. Things like enthusiasm, spontaneity, the ability to be playful, desire for sex, because reproduction is expensive and your body thinks you're in survival mode. The capacity to track emotional nuance. You become a very efficient robot. You can execute tasks. You can solve problems. You can keep everyone alive. But connect emotionally, process your feelings, be present for a deep conversation. Brother, your system doesn't have the RAM for that anymore, and here's where it gets really fun. This shutdown creates a feedback loop that makes everything worse. You start emotionally withdrawing because you're overwhelmed. Your partner interprets this as you not caring. She pulls away or becomes critical. You feel even less appreciated and more exhausted. You withdraw more. She escalates. You shut down harder. And round we go. I had a guy in my practice describe it perfectly. He said, "I'm working 50 hours a week, doing bedtime every night, handling all the finances, fixing everything that breaks, and somehow I'm the bad guy because I didn't ask about her day with enough enthusiasm." His wife's version. He's physically here but emotionally gone. I feel like I'm living with a roommate. They're both right, and they're both wrong. He's not emotionally gone by choice. He's emotionally bankrupt from output without input. She's not imagining the distance, but she's misdiagnosing the cause. You know what makes burnout exponentially worse? When nobody notices you're burning out. When you were dating, effort got rewarded. You planned a date? She lit up. You remembered something she mentioned? She felt seen. You showed up emotionally? She appreciated you. Now, effort is expected. No, it's owed. You do bedtime 7 nights in a row? That's baseline fatherhood. You handle all the home repairs? That's just being a responsible adult. You work extra hours to cover expenses. Well, bills don't pay themselves. You bite your tongue during another circular argument because you're too tired to fight. You're stonewalling. You're running a marathon while everyone criticizes your form. Here's something nobody tells you about fatherhood. You don't just gain a kid. You lose a self. Not completely. Not all at once. But piece by piece, the person you were pre-kids gets filed away under remember when. Remember when you played guitar. Remember when you had time to read. Remember when you went out with friends. Remember when you felt like yourself. But you can't mourn this too loudly because that makes you selfish. You chose to have kids. Yeah, and astronauts choose to go to space, but they're still allowed to miss gravity. The you that exists now is a highly specialized machine designed for one purpose. Keep the family running. And machines don't have feelings. They don't need appreciation. They just need to work. So you work and work and work until one day your wife says, "I don't even know who you are anymore." And you want to say, "Yeah, me neither." But you don't, because that conversation requires energy you don't have. Your partner sees your shutdown as rejection, as emotional withdrawal, as you not loving her anymore. And maybe on the surface, that's what it looks like. You don't initiate conversations anymore because every conversation feels like more labor. You don't plan dates anymore because planning anything feels overwhelming. You don't share your feelings anymore because your feelings are tired, overwhelmed, and numb. And nobody wants to hear that again. You're not present during family time because your brain is too fried to engage. From her perspective, you've checked out of the relationship. From your perspective, you're drowning and nobody's throwing you a life raft. They're throwing you more responsibilities. Both perspectives are real. Neither is complete. Modern fathers are stuck in an impossible position. You're expected to be the provider, but also split household duties 50-50. You're expected to be emotionally available, but also solve problems and stay logical. You're expected to be sensitive, but also be strong and never complain. You're expected to be involved in childcare, but also respect that she's the default parent. You're expected to carry the family financially, but also not work too much. It's like playing a video game where the rules change every level and nobody tells you what they are. And when you inevitably fail at one of these contradictory expectations, you're not overwhelmed, you're deficient. A guy told me, I feel like I'm constantly failing tests I didn't know I was taking. That's modern fatherhood in one sentence. The thing about burnout is it doesn't announce itself. There's no moment where you wake up and think, well, I'm burned out now. Time to address this. It's gradual, like a dimmer switch slowly turning down the lights. You just start, caring less, feeling less, responding less. Your wife asks, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm just tired." But it's not nothing, and it's not just tired. It's years of operating beyond capacity with no recovery time. It's the accumulation of 1,000 moments where your effort went unnoticed. It's the psychological weight of being responsible for everyone's happiness except your own. It's knowing that if you actually stop, if you actually collapse, everything collapses. So you keep going, on autopilot, running empty. Here's what needs to happen, but probably won't. Your burnout needs to be recognized as burnout, not reframed as emotional failure. Your partner needs to understand that withdrawal is a symptom, not a choice. You need permission to not be okay without being labeled as weak or unavailable. The family needs to function without treating you as an infinite resource. But here's reality. None of that happens unless you speak it. And speaking it requires vulnerability you might not have capacity for anymore. The brutal truth. Sometimes the only way out of dad burnout is through the thing you're most afraid of. Conflict. Not destructive conflict. Honest conflict. I'm not emotionally absent. I'm completely depleted. I'm not distant. I'm running on fumes. I haven't checked out of our relationship. I've collapsed under the weight of it. Will she understand? Maybe. Maybe not. But continuing to suffer in silence while being labeled as the problem, that's not sustainable. You weren't absent. You were operating a nuclear reactor with no coolant. You weren't emotionally unavailable. You were psychologically overdrawn. You didn't stop caring. You stopped having the capacity to demonstrate care in the ways she recognizes. And here's the really messed up part. Even now reading this, you probably feel guilty. Like you should be doing more. Like your burnout is still somehow your fault. That guilt? That's the problem. You've been so thoroughly conditioned to put everyone else first that your own collapse feels like a moral failing. It's not. You're not broken. You're not deficient. You're not emotionally stunted. You're human, running a marathon, while everyone asks why you're not smiling more. The conversation about dad burnout needs to change. We need to stop pretending that men are emotionally absent by choice. We need to recognize that the modern father is carrying an invisible load that's crushing him. And we need to give men permission to say, "I can't do this anymore," without being labeled as weak or uncommitted. You weren't absent, you were running empty. And maybe, just maybe, it's time someone noticed.